I want to talk about Ireland and what's been happening here over the last number of weeks since this pandemic broke. And I suppose our focus as a nation, and it needed to be, was very much focused on safety in the home, so safety in our businesses, safety in the nation, and protecting ICU beds. And, since we've been taking these actions in favour of safety, our economy has taken a huge hit and has had to play a second role. And the impact on our economy has been dramatic. And it probably reminds me of Darwin, our Darwin statement. He says that the environment has changed dramatically in the last number of weeks. And it's going to be very, very important for Irish business to be able to adapt to that changing environment. And it's those of us that are in a position to adapt best and quickest and most appropriately that are going to come through this thing. And really that's the theme of what I want to share with you over the next couple of foils. When we look at the scale of the change that's happened over the last few weeks, we're in a situation now where in Ireland we have close to 600,000 people at the moment who are on the COVID scheme. We heard Minister O'Donoghue earlier in the week talk about, potentially looking at a peak of unemployment between now and the end of the year in the order of 52%. And we talked about, the potential of a negative GDP impact of about 10.5%. These are dramatic figures. When you put in context, we had a 4.8% unemployment rate only a couple of months ago in February, just 2 months, 3 months ago. So the scale of the impact has been dramatic. And as I say, it's those of us that are in a position to be able to respond best to that that's going to be key. So let's talk about some of where the actions need to be to help us to respond to this. Well, I would suggest that there's really two key themes here in terms of actions. There are actions that are coming down from tops down from the government, and there are actions that are coming bottoms up from ourselves and our companies. And I want to just applaud the government in this regard. I think they've gotten out in front of the problem, and there have been a lot of very brave actions and very appropriate actions taken very quickly. And in terms of subsidising the industry, I think the other thing I would welcome is that certain programs have been put out very quickly in order to make immediate impact. And then as the situation is evolving, we're modifying those programs and making them more apt for application. So an example of that was the wage subsidy program was put out on March 24th. It was probably a one-size-fits-all in order to get something really quickly out there. And that was modified on April 15th. And now we have modifications like for lower paid workers, now you can get up to 85% subsidy, whereas it was previously 70%. And there's a graduated scale all the way up to 76,000 in salary. So there's a great example of a program put out really quickly, had immediate impact, and then we modified it as we understood the environment changing. Likewise, on the liquidity supports that the Minister announced on April 8th, I think these are really, really welcome. And again, there's probably some changes and modifications in that, and I'm going to expand on some of those that, we would probably hopefully see some addendums and changes and modifications on those over the days and weeks ahead. So, first of all, it's important to acknowledge, I think this is a massively changing environment, radically evolving. And, I think the government taking these brave actions and getting out there quickly and in front of the problem, I just want to acknowledge that, and we want to encourage more and more of that over the days and weeks ahead. But we also need to show leadership, and we need to show bravery, and we need to take actions as well as individuals and as companies. And, right now we're in a situation where, there's a large number of us as companies who probably are having very different experiences. There are companies that are never as busy. If you happen to be feeding into retail or into PPE or into the medical supplies industry, you're probably going through one of the busiest periods of the recent times. We've seen retail grow by up to 14 or 15%. Put that in context, a really, really busy Christmas Eve is often thought about as a 3 or 4% hike in terms of retail. We've seen orders of magnitude of 3 or 4x that and sustained on a daily basis over the last 5 or 6 weeks. So if you're in the pipeline in the retail sector, you're probably in your busiest time. However, we're not all experiencing the same thing. There are many, many thousands of companies throughout the island that are closed and are really genuinely fearful about what the experience is going to be like after May 5th. and for some of them worried about even if they can come back to operation on May 5th. So whether you happen to be in your busiest time or whether you happen to be closed and fearful about what's going on, the one common theme that we all of us have to embrace is that coronavirus is here to stay with us, at least in the medium term. We've got to keep vigilant in terms of our safety operating practices and procedures. We've got to learn to coexist with the coronavirus. And we've got to learn to be able to run our businesses in the company of coronavirus. And that's why we need these SOPs or safety operating procedures in place. And we'll emphasize that these safety operating procedures are not just about all of the things that we know about. It's not about these things, gloves. It's not just about hygiene. It's not about social distancing. It's all of those things. But, you know, in some ways, they're the easier things to do. So let me give you an example of a coffee shop. Yes, you can go into a coffee shop. You can move the tables apart. You can have people wear gloves, and you can take all of the hygiene actions. But the reality is that it's the impact in terms of business that will probably be the biggest impact on those companies. And you know, their revenues are going to be impacted by the fact that there's less people coming into their coffee shops. By pushing those tables apart, they're going to have less people able to be in those coffee shops. So if you're experiencing a revenue dip of 20 or 30%, that could be the difference between a company being in a position to stay viable and not be viable. So we have to respond to the economic challenges. We also have to respond to the physical safety challenges, and they're part of our SOP. So let's talk about what all this means in terms of, because we're going to have to take actions from a stimulus point of view. And, you know, we talked earlier on about those actions that the government are taking. So that they fall into different categories. You see them on here. There are programs managed by the SBCI, by Enterprise Ireland, by microfinance, which are the microfinance are more targeted at the smaller companies. And then there's a series of grants. So as I said, this is probably the biggest single package that we've put out, and you know, hopefully there's also more further modifications to be done and addendums to be added over the days and weeks ahead. But you know, in terms of some of the things that we would maybe offer as by way of observations, the SBCI programs, while we welcome them, there really in many cases the rescaler programs are already out there. We welcome the 500k unsecured. I think it's a really good idea. It's a two-step application process, is really quick. However, the interest rates on those SBCI loans still, some movement needs to be done there. At 4%, while it's definitely better than the high street, the reality is that you know, it's the ECB rate, as we know, is in the order of a third of 1%. So there's quite a bit of movement between the ECB rate and that 4% rate that we're putting those programs into the marketplace. So I think we need some movement on interest rate. We also need some movement in terms of the terms of repayment. So that program right now is designed around 3 years. I think again we need to relook at things like that and see how do we relax some of those terms, because that's really, really hard in business and it probably makes it impractical. I just want to, next program is the Sustaining Enterprise Ireland Fund. You know, Enterprise Ireland, to the credit of being in the corner of SMEs for many, many years and will continue to be so. So hats off to Enterprise Ireland. I think they put a great program together here called Sustaining Enterprise Fund. It's a brand new fund. It's a 5-year program with some flexibility around the first 3 years, and it's targeted at helping companies get access to about 800k. So I think it's probably an example of a new fund with it's tailored probably more with SMEs in mind. And then we have MFI funds. It's welcome the fact that we've increased the loan size to 50k. However, again, I think there's some movement needed on interest rates. I think there's some movement, you know, a lot of these smaller companies, what they need is not so much loans. They need some relaxation, possibly on VAT, possibly on commercial rates, possibly in terms of grants. So I think we're going to, again, as we evolve and as this evolves, we're probably going to be looking at, you know, and we need to be as a nation looking at stimuli that are probably more tailored. And just like in the wage subsidy program, hopefully some of these considerations and some further addendums will be included over the days and weeks ahead as a government. We get a better sense of what's more appropriate for the market. And I just want to close with this foil. I want to I talk about adaptation and our need to adapt. We in IMR are also adapting, and we're pivoting our business model to be able to support you. We have a team here we are very connected with business in Ireland. We're very connected with business across Europe and into the USA. And we are open and ready to support you, to help you with your business plans, to help you pilot your ideas, to have our resources here, help you to prepare yourself for that and put those safety operating procedures in place.